I am Edward Fox, and I am supporting.
Edward Fox shocked fans in 2021 when he spoke against COVID vaccines and lockdowns. But that was just the beginning. In 2025, he made headlines again by refusing film roles because of woke script changes. Then came the death rumors he had to personally deny. His nephew Laurence Fox lost a massive libel case, paying $180,000 for false accusations. And now Edward has admitted something most actors never say out loud about Hollywood's biggest secret. The truth about what really happens behind closed doors is finally coming out. Edward Fox was born on April 13, 1937, in Chelsea, London. From the moment he entered the world, his life was wrapped in drama, secrets, and family tension. His father, Robin Fox, worked as a theatrical agent. He had married an actress named Angela Worthington in October 1935. But just before Edward was born, Robin told Angela something that would haunt her. He said he would never be faithful. And he meant it. Robin had affair after affair, even a long relationship with Rosalind Chatto, who later had a son in 1948 named Daniel. Many believed Robin was the father. Things didn't stop there. One of Robin's most shocking relationships was with Princess Marina, the widow of Prince George. It wasn't just gossip. It added a strange and uncomfortable royal twist to the already messy family story. Edward's mother, Angela, was the daughter of famous playwright Frederick Lonsdale. But even that came with a shadow. She had been born out of wedlock. Her father had built a name for himself writing plays like The Lady of Scandal back in 1927. But what people didn't know was how close his stories were to his own family. They were full of lies, affairs, and social clashes, the same things Edward was born into. During World War II, Edward's family moved to Sussex to escape the bombings in London. He was still a small boy when he saw bombs falling, which left him with nightmares and helped shape his quiet, reserved personality. In the early 1950s, he went to Harrow School, starting around age 13. He didn't do well in schoolwork. On his entrance exam, he only got 3% in math, but got in anyway because of his father's influence. While he enjoyed learning French and German, he didn't like the way drama was taught. He found the acting classes boring and hated how the school focused more on tradition than creativity. Winston Churchill even visited the school twice while Edward was there, but none of it impressed him. He wasn't expelled, but he left early in 1955, tired of the rigid environment. That same year, when he turned 18, he joined the Army for national service. From 1955 to 1957, Edward served in the military. He hoped to become an officer in the Coldstream Guards, but didn't make it, so he joined the Loyals Regiment instead. Later on, there were claims that he did serve in the Coldstream Guards after all. Either way, his time in the Army was very different from his upper-class schooling. He actually enjoyed the discipline, even though it clashed with his artistic personality. After finishing his service at age 20, he started auditioning for acting roles. One director said he didn't have much talent, but noticed how Edward loved to recite dramatic speeches on the street. He once lost a job at Marks & Spencer just because he wore a loud checked suit. That job didn't last, but it was another sign that Edward didn't fit into the usual world. In 1958, he joined RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, hoping to train as an actor. He was 21. Some of his classmates, like Albert Finney, would go on to become stars. But Edward didn't stay long. He felt that the school wasn't helping him much. He did love the voice lessons from Clifford Turner, and he kept using those techniques for the rest of his career. He left RADA in either 1959 or 1960 and started performing in small theaters. That same year, he bought a striped suit for $47 and 14 shillings from Henry Poole and Cobbins, probably for auditions. He moved into a little cottage in Sussex called Ockenden and kept walking around town reciting speeches to anyone who would listen. He wasn't famous yet, but he was learning. In the early 1960s, he worked as a waiter in London theaters to pay the bills. He also did odd jobs and tried to stay close to the stage world. People gossiped constantly, and Edward listened quietly, learning how the business worked. There was never any proof that he saw anything terrible like casting couch situations, but he promised himself he'd never fall into those traps. In 1962, he got a small, uncredited part in a film called The Mindbenders, and later that same year, he appeared in The Loneliness of the Long-Distance Runner, also uncredited. He was 25 at the time, struggling to get by, but slowly moving forward. That year, he also took a trip to Paris that would change everything. In 1962, when Edward visited Paris, he discovered the French New Wave film movement. He watched films by François Truffaut and others, and it opened his eyes to a completely different kind of cinema. It made him question what kind of actor he wanted to be. He was still poor, still working side jobs, but this trip gave him a sense of purpose. When he came back to London, he took on more roles. Edward Fox got his first big chance on February 14, 1963. He wasn't the star, he was just an understudy for his brother James in a play called The Importance of Being Earnest at Wyndham's Theatre. But things didn't go smoothly. During rehearsals on March 5th, the two brothers got into a serious fight. Edward didn't like how James delivered a certain line, and they argued so badly that it almost ruined the production. The director saw that Edward had something intense in him, but the fight caused a standoff that lasted 2 days. The producer, H.M. Tennant, had to step in to calm them down. Edward finally got to perform once on April 20th. He played Algernon and got good reviews, even with all the drama backstage. But things got worse. Because of the fight, some agents called him unprofessional and refused to work with him. For a short while, he was blacklisted. When the play ended on May 15th, he had only earned a little attention, but it was enough to keep going. Before that, Edward had tried to get into film. He appeared as an extra in The Loneliness of the Long-Distance Runner, which was filmed between June 4th and August 12th, 1961, but released in some places in 1964. He wasn't even credited. On July 10th, 1961, the director, Tony Richardson, rejected him for a bigger role, saying Edward looked too posh for the part. That hurt. Edward had gone to Harrow, a fancy school, and he didn't fit the working-class vibe of the film, but instead of quitting, he changed. He began studying method acting. He followed real runners and workers, starting August 15th, and lost 12 pounds to make himself look rougher. On September 3rd, while filming, he added a line that wasn't in the script. Richardson shouted at him, "Stick to extras." The film premiered on September 27, 1962, and it reminded Edward of how it felt to be left out. That pain stayed with him until 1965. For that tiny role, he got paid just $50. By 1967, Edward finally got a real TV part. He starred in the Wednesday play on October 18th in an episode called The Order. He played a military officer hiding his sexuality. Inspired by real scandals like the 1962 Vassal case, the episode aired just 3 months after Britain decriminalized homosexuality on July 27th. Viewers were shocked. By October 20th, over 1,200 complaints came in. Some letters even threatened him. One on October 22nd said he should be hurt. He had spent weeks preparing, meeting activists in Soho. Starting September 5th, the role caused a big fight in his own family. On November 1st, some relatives cut ties with him. But the episode got 8 million viewers. Censors cut out 3 minutes of scenes on October 15th. Even with the success, Edward had anxiety attacks until the following year. Still, by December, he had 15 new offers. In 1969, Edward got a small role in Oh, What a Lovely War. He played a military aide and started filming on January 6th at Brighton Pier. On February 20th, he got into a heated argument with director Richard Attenborough. Edward wanted stronger anti-war lines. They shouted at each other so badly that filming stopped for 4 hours. He almost got fired. On February 22nd, the director gave in, but things stayed tense. It hurt Edward's career until they made peace in 1977. Later that year, Edward acted in Battle of Britain, which came out on September 15, 1969. He played a pilot named Archie. Filming happened between April 1st and July 20th at Duxford. He met veterans like Douglas Bader, who had lost 23 friends in the air battles of 1940. On June 10th, he sat through a talk where someone told them that 103 RAF pilots were killed in just a few months. Edward started having terrible dreams. He would wake up screaming at least 3 nights a week. Bad weather slowed down filming so much that his contract stretched from 6 weeks to 11 months. In 1971, Edward's life changed with the go-between. He played Viscount Trimmingham, a scarred aristocrat. The film was based on a novel from 1953 and filmed in Norfolk. It premiered on May 13th at Cannes and won the Palme d'Or. Edward won the BAFTA for Best Supporting Actor on March 23, 1972. But there was trouble off-camera. Tabloids began spreading stories in July 1970 about a secret affair between Edward and his co-star Julie Christie. She was 30 and he was 34, married to Tracy Reed since 1958. They claimed the two were kissing between takes. Over 15 front pages ran the gossip. On August 5th, Edward denied it in a BBC interview. Still, the rumors caused problems. Then came The Day of the Jackal in 1973. Edward played a cold-blooded assassin. To prepare, starting in August 1972, he spent 60 hours practicing with a custom .22 rifle and met real ex-mercenaries in Paris. It was so realistic that MI5 started watching him. On September 15th, they visited the set in Vienna, worried he was learning too much about real terror tactics. On October 3rd, he got a letter at home in London. It had a bullet inside and a message: "Stop digging or join the targets." It was sent from Marseille. Police found out it came from a fired extra. But filming stopped for 2 days. That delay cost $45,000. The film came out on May 16, 1973. It had cost $8 million to make and earned $16 million. Edward's scenes were shot over 120 days across 3 countries. He even learned how to put together the sniper rifle in under 90 seconds. In 1978, Edward played King Edward VIII in Edward and Mrs. Simpson. It showed the king's love for Wallis Simpson and his decision to give up the throne on December 10, 1936. The show aired from November 8th to December 20th. But royalists were furious. On October 15th, 200 protesters showed up at Elstree Studios, shouting, "Traitor to the Crown!" The Monarchist League sent 1,500 letters asking for the show to be stopped. On October 17th, 5 people were arrested. Filming paused for 3 days and cost $20,000. Edward even got a letter saying, "You'll abdicate from acting." Still, each episode drew 12 million viewers. Parliament even debated it on December 5th. Critics said the script left out facts like Edward's ties to the Nazis. Edward defended it in an interview, saying, "History demands truth." Finally, in 1979, Edward played Dr. Hendricks in The Cat and the Canary. Filming ran from March 5 to June 20th in Pirbright. The set was full of drama. Co-stars Honor Blackman and Olivia Hussey clashed over the script. On May 15th, Hussey walked off the set, and shooting stopped for a week. Costs jumped from $750,000 to $1.1 million, with $80,000 spent just on overtime. Edward stepped in. On May 22nd, he met both actresses for 3 hours at his hotel and helped settle the issue. He promised they could help shape the scenes. By May 25th, things were back on track. The movie came out on November 1st and earned $2.5 million. Part of the fight was over lesbian undertones in one scene, which Hussey didn't like. She demanded 10 rewrites. Edward later said he saved the film by quoting Shakespeare. In 1982, Edward Fox took on one of the most controversial roles of his life. He played General Reginald Dyer in the film Gandhi. Dyer was the real British officer who gave the order to fire on a peaceful crowd in Amritsar on April 13, 1919. About 15,000 unarmed people were trapped inside a walled garden. Dyer ordered his men to shoot without warning. Officially, 379 people died and 1,200 were hurt, but Indian records said over 1,000 were killed. Fox played the role with such cold intensity that when he said "fire" on screen, it sent chills. The performance got him a BAFTA nomination in 1983, but it also brought terrifying consequences. While promoting the film in London in January 1983, Fox received 12 death threats. Some letters called him the devil. One even said, "Dyer's ghost will haunt you." Fox had to sleep with a security guard outside his hotel room for 10 nights. The fear was real. Still, the movie won 8 Oscars and made $127 million worldwide. Fox later said it was his most important role, even though it put his life at risk. In 1983, Fox starred opposite Albert Finney in The Dresser, which came out in 1984. He played Norman, a loyal helper to an aging actor during the bombing days of World War II in London. The film showed the chaos behind theater life, with 17 intense scenes of rehearsal and breakdowns. But during a real rehearsal in February 1983, things went too far. Finney stayed in character and shouted insults at Fox for 15 straight minutes. He called him useless, weak, pathetic. Fox broke down in tears. The filming stopped for 2 days. Finney later said he lost control of his method acting. Fox said he stayed silent to protect the scene. But after the shoot, he had to go to therapy. Still, the film was a hit. It earned $5.3 million and got 5 Oscar nominations. Critics said the two actors had powerful chemistry, and the New York Times said it felt brutally real on screen. On March 15, 1986, Edward Fox returned to Broadway for a play called The Philanthropist. He played a quiet professor named Philip, surrounded by loud, chaotic friends. The play ran at the Ethel Barrymore Theater and made $1.2 million from 25,000 people who came to watch. But on April 2nd, during one of the dinner scenes, something shocking happened. His trousers ripped open right in the middle of a speech. About 1,000 people saw everything. For 10 full seconds, the theater froze. Fox quickly made up a line, walked off stage, and kept the show going. The next day, tabloids ran with the story. The New York Post headline read, "Fox's Foxy Flub." Ticket sales dipped 20% in the first week, and producers thought of canceling the play. But Fox didn't let it die. He joked about it in interviews, saying, "My dignity took the hit, but the show must go on." The buzz helped. Attendance rose by 15% after that. Years later, it was even used in an SNL skit. What started as humiliation became part of theater legend. In 1983, Edward Fox also joined the James Bond universe, playing the role of M in Never Say Never Again. It was a special Bond film because it wasn't part of the regular Eon series. Sean Connery came back as Bond, and the movie earned $160 million globally when it released on October 7th. Fox had 9 scenes with Connery's Bond, always serious and stern, but behind the scenes, tensions boiled. On April 12th, during a filming day, director Irvin Kershner made changes that leaned toward Connery's vision. Fox didn't like it. 3 days later, on April 15th, he walked off the set in anger. He shouted, "I'm not a puppet," in front of the crew and left. Filming had to stop for 2 days, costing about $200,000. Connery himself had to calm him down. They had a private talk, and Fox returned. He later called it his worst moment on a film set, blaming long 14-hour days. Despite the trouble, the movie did better than the rival Bond film Octopussy, making $20 million more. Fox's version of M became iconic, even though the walkout remained part of the story. In early 1989, Fox took on the role of a British officer in Return from the River Kwai, a war film about Allied prisoners building the Thai-Burma Railway during World War II. Filming took place in the thick jungles of Thailand from January 15th to May 20th. Over 12,000 POWs had died building that railway between 1942 and 1943. Fox tried to give his all, but on March 10th, while filming a night scene in Kanchanaburi, he was bitten by mosquitoes and developed severe malaria. His temperature rose to 104°C. He was rushed to a Bangkok hospital and had to stay for 18 days. He lost 15 pounds. The shooting was delayed by 5 weeks, costing the production $1.2 million more. Fox said later in a 1990 interview, "I thought death was near." He saw terrifying visions during the illness, but the pain gave something powerful to his performance. The movie earned only $4.5 million, but later won a BAFTA for sound. His performance, people said, looked haunted in a way that felt painfully real. In 1991, Fox took on the role of Prince John in a British version of Robin Hood, which came out on May 13th. Patrick Bergin played Robin, and it had a darker tone compared to Kevin Costner's version, which was released just a month later on June 14th and made $390 million. Fox's version only had a $15 million budget, and behind the scenes, things got tricky. The producer, John McTiernan, ordered reshoots for historical accuracy, which delayed everything. During test screenings, people found Fox's version of Prince John a bit too cruel. 12 minutes of his scenes were cut from the final movie, which ran for 104 minutes. Fox said he based his performance on real royal scandals, like the betrayal of the Magna Carta in 1215. But because the other version became such a hit, his role got buried. Still, for Fox, it was a chance to try something new after years of serious drama roles. In 1996, Fox appeared in a TV movie called September, which aired on December 8th. He played Archie, a man caught in a painful love triangle in the Scottish Highlands. The most shocking part was a suicide plot, where Pandora, played by Jacqueline Bisset, takes her own life after revealing she has terminal cancer. The twist came through a letter her character left behind. Fox later said in a November 1996 interview that this story hit close to home. When he was just 14, his parents divorced in 1951, and it was messy, filled with betrayal and pain. His younger brother James was only 12. That childhood experience stayed with him. During production, there was a debate about how graphic the suicide scene should be. They ended up reshooting parts, and the final release got pushed back by 3 months. When it aired, 4.2 million people watched. Many were stunned by how raw and emotional it felt. Fox later said the role helped him understand his own family trauma. In 2002, Fox returned to the screen in The Importance of Being Earnest. Released on May 17th, he played a clever butler named Lane, and it was a small nod to his early acting days. But things weren't smooth. In April 2001, before shooting started, Fox demanded to be paid $500,000, saying he had a long and respected career, including a BAFTA win. The producers, Miramax, didn't agree. Talks went on for weeks, and filming was delayed by 6 weeks. In the end, Fox took $350,000 plus a share of the profits. But the $15 million film only made $18 million worldwide. Critics liked Fox's performance, saying it had Oscar Wilde's sharp humor, but fans were more interested in the drama behind the scenes. Fox later joked in an interview that it was all just earnest business. From 2000 to 2005, Fox played a colorful character named Lord Kilwillie in the BBC show Monarch of the Glen. He appeared in 24 episodes across 7 seasons. The show followed a Scottish estate and the lives of those around it. In Season 3, things got controversial. Kilwillie proposed to Molly, a widow, not long after her husband Hector had died. Fans were furious. In March 2002, over 1,500 letters were sent to the BBC, saying the story was insensitive. The writers quickly changed the script to tone things down. Production even paused for 2 weeks to fix it. Fox defended the plot, saying it was inspired by his own life. In 1973, he married during a time of deep family conflict. The show still averaged 7 million viewers and actually got a 15% boost in ratings because of the controversy. It also helped Fox become a regular on television, staying with the show until it ended on October 23, 2005. In 2010, something rare happened in British theatre. A one-man show called Sand in the Sandwiches began touring across the UK. It was about the life of poet John Betjeman. Edward Fox was the only actor on stage, performing nearly 2 hours each night. He wasn't young at the time either. He was already in his 70s, but that didn't stop him. Every night he gave his full energy, reciting poems and telling personal stories from Betjeman's life. He didn't try to look like Betjeman, who was bald and heavy-set. But that didn't matter. What mattered was how Fox captured the poet's soul, the warmth, the charm, and the sadness that made Betjeman unforgettable. His favorite pieces were Miss Joan Hunter Dunn and The Town Clerk's Views. He said Betjeman was special because he spoke directly to people's hearts. The show was so loved that in 2017, it got a rare week-long run at the Theatre Royal Haymarket. For a non-musical, that was a big deal. 3 years after the show's debut, in 2013, Edward Fox joined the Doctor Who audio drama series. It should have been a smooth experience, but things got complicated. The BBC had started cracking down on fan-made content. They were sending legal threats to people who had created audio dramas without official approval. Edward wasn't directly involved in any lawsuit, but he was caught in the middle of a wider storm. Some people saw it as unfair. They pointed out that while the BBC was going after small fan projects, it also celebrated other unofficial work, like a student-led recreation from 2019 called Mission to the Unknown. Fans felt confused. Edward didn't speak much about it, but it was clear the Doctor Who community was going through a strange and tense time. In 2015, Edward turned to something deeply emotional. He worked with pianist Lucy Parham on Elegy, Rachmaninoff, A Heart in Exile. It told the story of Russian composer Sergei Rachmaninoff, who left his home in 1917 and never truly returned. Edward read letters and diary entries while Parham played Rachmaninoff's haunting piano pieces. Together, they created something quiet and powerful. The music included preludes, etudes tableaux, and moments musicaux. Some pieces were by Scriabin and Tchaikovsky too. They performed it live at St. John's Smith Square and later recorded it. The tour reached many people who may not have known the pain behind Rachmaninoff's music until they heard Edward's voice. In 2018, Edward did something truly rare. He stepped on stage in Oscar Wilde's An Ideal Husband with his real-life son, Freddie Fox. Edward was 81. Freddie was 39. They played father and son in the play too. The dynamic was electric. Edward was the strict Earl of Caversham. Freddie played Lord Goring, a playful young man hiding quiet wisdom. The audience loved their chemistry. When Edward asked, "Do you really always understand what you say, sir?" and Freddie replied, "Yes, father, if I listen attentively," the theater erupted with laughter. They performed 8 times a week, which was physically demanding for both. But their bond made it something special. In 2019, Edward took part in the Poetry Hour. These were public poetry readings, but for him, they were also a way to defend something he loved: British poetry, classic values, cultural memory. At the same time, his nephew Laurence Fox was making headlines by attacking cancel culture. Laurence even started a political party and called cultural leaders woke commissars. Edward didn't speak about politics directly. Instead, he chose poetry. He believed in doing only what felt meaningful. As he once said, actors shouldn't take every role. They should do something that actually brings value. But Edward's personal life has also drawn attention. Back in 1958, when he was just starting out, he married actress Tracy Reed. She was only 17. Their marriage ended by 1961, but they remained friends for life. Tracy later said their marriage was doomed from the start, but they never stopped caring. They had one daughter, Lucy Arabella Fox, who became Viscountess Gormanston. Tracy later appeared in Dr. Strangelove and married 3 more times. She passed away in 2012 from liver cancer at age 70. Edward's most lasting relationship has been with Joanna David. They began seeing each other in 1971. They had 2 children, Emilia and Freddie. But they didn't marry until July 2004 after 33 years together. Joanna had serious health problems, including brain surgery, in 1993. She later supported brain and cancer charities. Their daughter Emilia became famous through Silent Witness, and Freddie followed them into acting too. But the Fox family name hasn't always meant praise. In January 2024, Laurence Fox, Edward's nephew, lost a huge libel case. He was ordered to pay $180,000 after falsely calling 2 men pedophiles online. One of the men was a drag artist who said the backlash was overwhelming. The court said Lawrence's words were cruel and without any proof. He appealed the decision on 5 points later that year, but the damage was already done. The incident placed unwanted attention on the entire Fox family. In 2021, Edward made headlines himself. He voiced doubts about COVID-19 vaccines and lockdowns. He didn't believe healthy people should be forced into isolation. For someone who had stayed mostly out of politics, this was a surprising move. But it wasn't completely shocking considering Lawrence's views. Still, many were disappointed. At the time, most British actors were encouraging vaccinations. Edward's words felt out of step. Then, in 2025, Edward, now 88, led a protest in Wareham. It was about saving a simple railway crossing that served 860 people a day. Many were elderly or disabled. The government wanted to replace it with a costly ramp system that wouldn't work for wheelchairs or prams. Edward showed up in person at 11 a.m. on February 1st and stood alongside MP Vicky Slade. His fame helped bring media attention, and the petition reached over 2,500 signatures. He even confronted officials about discrimination, using the Equality Act to back his case. Later that same year, on October 18th, the Purbeck Film Festival hosted an evening with the Fox family. During the event, Edward admitted something few actors ever say out loud. He talked about nepotism. He said that having a well-known family name opened doors. His brother, Robert Fox's work as a producer, and his own legacy helped younger family members get roles that others would struggle to find. He didn't deny it. In fact, he said it plainly. Family name recognition matters. In an interview that year, Edward revealed even more. He had turned down big film offers because the scripts had been rewritten with what he called woke changes. He believed the characters were no longer true to the original stories. He didn't want to be part of that. He felt older actors were pressured to accept roles that pushed modern agendas, but he could afford to say no. He also said cancel culture was inhuman and stupid. Rumors about his health kept popping up too. In 2025, social media claimed he had died. It spread fast. But Edward had to speak up and say he was still alive and well. He blamed the false reports on his reduced public appearances and the controversies around Laurence. He said these kinds of hoaxes had become too common, especially for older actors who don't use social media. It was frustrating for him to have to address lies, but the silence only made them louder. Through all of it, through poetry, politics, protests, and pain, Edward Fox has stayed committed to what matters to him. At 88, he's still choosing his roles carefully, still speaking up when he believes something is wrong, and still reminding people that a long life in the spotlight doesn't mean you stop caring about what's real.